Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 220 of Real Blend, a podcast that is ready to have a Kill Bill debate all over again. My name is Sean O'Connell.
It's not.
The managing editor at Cinema Blend. And on this week's show, the box office continues its run. Some significant things we want to talk about the films that are in theaters at the moment. And we are going to try, God help us all, our very first tier list, structured around a director and not a franchise. And that director is going to be Quentin Tarantino. We're going to be ranking the films of Quentin Tarantino on the tier list, and we'll explain how we're going to get around the idea of an S tier when we get to that point. And by we, I mean, I'll try Jake Hamilton to see if Daenerys has stopped barking. Hi, Jake. How are you?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. This is Jake of Fox 32 in Chicago. And he's joined, as always, of course, by Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Hello, Kevin. How are things?
Sean, Jacob, Gabriel, good to see you guys. Love you guys. And I'm looking forward. I mean, Tarantino tier list is going to be, I already feel the tension and the anxiety that's going to be induced.
There's no tension when, Kevin, our opinion is backed by Quentin.
Right.
Like there is no tension. Like it's game over.
I'm not even doing the Kill Bill thing, but I'm saying, do you think he even has a C?
No.
All right, this will be interesting. All right, housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube,
I do have a question.
Sure.
We are, to clarify, we're only doing the 9 films he's directed. We're
Correct.
not talking about.
That is
Correct.
correct. We'll explain when we get to the segment.
But does 4 rooms count?
Oh, I don't think so.
It doesn't. We'll explain when we get to the segment.
Rooms.
Yeah.
That's Gabe Kovach, the producer, who is having some
well, they won't know.
Issues.
My regular footage looks great.
Hi, Gabe. How you doing? All right, good to see you. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for joining us. A lot of people went over and checked out the Tom Hanks interview on video. That clip did twice as much as a normal Real Blend YouTube video does. We want to thank everybody for going over there and checking it out. We were thrilled to have video for that interview.
And also how well it was picked up by other sources, just because of some of the fun tidbits that we got from Mr. Tom Hanks during the conversation.
He's a gifted storyteller. That Tom Hanks
isn't he? Like no joke though. Like obviously, like I'm always going to be biased in his corner, but like the way he tells a story is pretty incredible.
The thing that floors me the most about it is that he didn't go into our interview expecting to tell any of those stories.
No,
had no clue what we were going to ask. Even the way that we asked into certain things wouldn't have brought up Sally Field and the woman from the Actors Studio or the Casablanca story that he told. And he tells them so well. They're so riveting. You're still hanging on every single word. So he's fantastic. If you haven't seen that yet, go to youtube.com/RealBlend podcast. And not just the Tom Hanks one, but go through a bunch of our old interviews with some really compelling people that we have on there. Of course, you were able to reach our entire library of films wherever you get your podcast needs met. And in addition, we got a nice shout out from Kimberly, who's a longtime listener of the show, who talked about this previous week's Real Blend Premium episode, which was a further breakdown of the Tom Hanks interview and how we got ourselves to Memphis and some of the complications that came with getting there and even more of the complications that came with getting back, and really just giving people insight into how these interviews come together, these opportunities come together. And I think that we've heard over the years that people who listen to this show enjoy that behind the scenes type stuff. They enjoy those looks behind the curtain as to how these interviews come together. So if you like premium, check the description for information on where you can sign up. There's a ton of great episodes there. We are about to record premium episode number 100 on our most recent one, which is kind of crazy.
I also want to clarify that I have purchased and sent Sean 2 4K Blu-rays. One of them was Tenet, and the other one was Saving Private Ryan. These were sent well over a week ago. Tenet has been in his house for 4 months.
Like a year. Tenet's like a year.
I also sent Sean a sound system for his TV. And he
Kevin, I would never express that kind of disrespect. I would never. I just want you to know.
How have you not put on one of those yet?
Well, I don't. The sound. First off, the sound system is tremendous, and not a day goes by that someone in our family doesn't say, Kevin McCarthy's the greatest for this soundboard. It really is terrific.
The least you can do for me.
Those 4Ks are just gathering dust in a corner.
the least you could do for me is just put one of those on.
You know what I got today? This arrived in the mail. Edge of Tomorrow 4K.
I love that one, but
he's going to watch that tonight.
You have 2 others to put on before that.
I do. It's true. But let me ask a question, though. Hold on. Let me ask a question. Because Tenet is available on HBO Max. And HBO Max, I believe, no, they don't show it in a 4K version. It looks like it's...
Well, streaming 4K is not... Streaming 4K is still compressed, and no one has like actually really good 4K. It's barely better than 1080p when you stream.
So just the disc.
The disc is where you get the real good 4K.
As I've said on the show a million times, you can't watch Tenet with the IMAX shots unless you put the 4K Blu-ray in or the Blu-ray. Right. I joke, and I'm actually proud of Sean because Sean has dived in or dove into the it sounds a weird word, dove into the 4K OLED world, and I know it's game changing because it blew my mind. And I kid around. I mean, obviously these are movies that you've seen before, but when you get a chance, just pop them in. Just watch the opening of Saving Private Ryan and then the airport scene in Tenet. That's all I ask.
I would just like to say that Sean has a 4K TV and I don't, and he and I have seen Tenet in 4K the same number of times.
That's true.
Which is 0.
Right.
0 times. I will, in my defense, I'm watching a lot of Bruce Willis movies lately. We watched Blind Date and Look Who's Talking last night, which is unusual.
Sean, the opening 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan.
I know. You don't have to tell me. Okay. All right, let's get to the box office because we're proud to announce we've been the show that is covering people returning to the box office. We've been really beating the drum for people to go back to the multiplexes and for studios to release movies that give you an option to go to the movies and then have something to select from. And so this past week, and in fact, if you paid attention to our text thread, which you would not be able to because it's our text thread.
If people only knew what was going on in our text thread.
Yeah.
Well, in this one in particular, it was a lot of discussion about Elvis and Top Gun coming down to the wire in a bit of a tie. And then Jake being very, very happy that Elvis eventually beat Top Gun.
Well, no, wait. You're phrasing that weirdly.
Well,
I am a big fan of the movie Elvis, and I feel like just the fact that Top Gun is pulling out the numbers it's pulling. I mean, it was a great weekend for both movies. Top Gun crossed $1 billion for the first time in Tom Cruise's 40+ year career, and Elvis gets the moment to be the #1 film in the country, which I think is incredibly impressive for a nearly 3-hour-long biopic that's skewing toward an older audience. But though I find it funny that they're calling an older audience 35+, because like that means I'm almost in the category of being older audiences.
Welcome.
But no, it's not like I was like rooting against Top Gun. I'm just happy for Elvis's success. I wanted it to do well.
Also, it's important to note we're recording this on Tuesday, so as Sean is mentioning, the weekend ended on a Sunday with both at 30.5 million. And then as the numbers rolled out Monday morning, we learned that Elvis beat Top Gun by 1 million. Now, regardless of that, the weekend was incredible as well. With the Black Phone did really well.
It made its money back. It surpassed its budget.
Yeah, and a lot of these films, if we get a chance, I'd like to just mention the Black Phone because I did see it on Sunday. Same. I think Jake saw it Friday. But in terms of like the box office, this is like one of the best box office weekends I've seen in so long. I mean, even though Lightyear fell, everything was still doing big numbers. And then
Lightyear fell hard.
It did 60+%. But what's interesting though is as we're recording this on Tuesday, on Monday, Top Gun did beat Elvis. I just saw that on Monday specifically, which is interesting.
Top Gun
because
can't be stopped.
It's unbelievable.
It's a behemoth. I love it. Gabe's message got cut off.
I'll go ahead and go ahead. We can talk about Black Phone. Talk about Black Phone in this segment is fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Makes sense.
Kevin, I'm curious to your thoughts as well.
To give it context, it made 23.6. I don't know if you said that, Sean. 23.6.
And 20 of that was from me and 20 of that was from Kevin. What did both of us paid to see it.
18 million to make or something.
Yeah, I think it was like the budget was like 18. I liked it. For me, it's a super enjoyable. It's a weird word for a movie like that, but I dug it for what it was. I don't think it never crossed the threshold of greatness for me. For me, it's like a really solid recommendable 3.5 out of 5 or a 7 out of 10 as I would give it. I thought Ethan Hawke was great. I thought the kids, the young actors in roles that really can make and break a movie like that were absolutely tremendous. I found the ending, the final act, the resolution to be a little lackluster. So I feel like the film kind of ended on a bit of a oomph. But overall, I thought it was a good time at the movies. But I mean, it can't compare to Sinister in the slightest if we're going to compare Scott Derrickson, Ethan Hawke horror films.
Yeah, I mean, Sinister is one of the scariest movies of all time.
Should we do a whole tier list for that franchise? Scott Derrickson, Ethan Hawke tier list. Yeah.
I don't even consider The Black Phone to be a horror movie, to be honest with you. It's more of a psychological thriller, I found.
Yeah, but I always get weird about that. Like, to me, it's still very much a horror. It's not scary, but it's still very much a horror movie. Like, I always feel like whenever a movie's not scary, then people say it's like a thriller. But it's a horror film.
It's not a horror movie.
It's absolutely a horror movie.
I think Sinister is a horror movie. I think that Black Phone is a psychological thriller. I think that I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it as a negative towards it. It's just not a horror movie. I mean, like straight up horror movie. Like Sinister is I would argue the scariest movie I've ever seen. The Black Phone is actually a really hopeful film, I found, in terms of kind of what happens in terms of the characters without giving anything away. There are bad things that happen in the Black Phone. Don't get me wrong, and there are characters who do meet tragic demises, but in terms of the overarching story, I thought it was a story of hope, a story of persevering, standing up for yourself. I think that this kid Mason Thames, is that how you pronounce his last name? Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, it's not like The River. Yeah, you're right.
What a phenomenal performance from this kid. Yeah. I mean, this kid, and then his sister Madeline. Yes. I want to. She is their performances carry this entire film. Yeah. And
they're the leads. Like Ethan Hawke is supporting.
Yeah, what I loved about the movie really were the more quiet moments, the conversations. Mm-hmm. Like there's a moment in a bathroom where two kids are talking about going to see Enter the Dragon and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I'm like, these scenes are amazing. I mean, the horror aspects of it, sure. And again, I'm not saying there's not horror qualities to the movie. The movie just didn't feel like a horror movie overall. It just felt like a thriller that dealt with achieving some sort of positive outcome, hopefully, for the characters. And I think
I'll tell you what, it's Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son, and a lot of Stephen King work that gets qualified as Misery. Misery's not a horror movie. No. But I think it gets qualified as horror. Like if you were to put it into a genre, I think that's just the case with some of their stories.
Yeah, I just think that if you're expecting Sinister, it's not Sinister. It is. Mm-hmm. It is very, very. Even though there are supernatural aspects to the Black Phone, it is very grounded. Even with the supernatural perspectives of it. But one thing I will say is Ethan Hawke's mask was created by Tom Savini. If you've seen from Dust,
nice.
Yeah, Dust
Till
Dawn.
The coolest aspect of the mask is that depending on how the grabber, who is Ethan Hawke's character, feels at any particular moment, the bottom of the mask detaches and he can either put a smiley face or a frowny face on it, depending on how he's feeling. It's amazing. It actually kind of reminded me of the mayor from Nightmare Before Christmas. His face would change. His head spins around. But I will say, I would just quick, Kevin, I'm curious, and you had to, one of my favorite single shots this year, and it's in the trailer, so I don't think I'm ruining anything, is that shot where the young boy is being taught how to fill the phone with dirt and swing it back. And they're the two, it's the young boy and then the ghost boy who's teaching him how to do it. Mm-hmm. And they're moving in a synchronized fashion, pulling it back and then throw it. And that shot, it's haunting, but it's weirdly beautiful in a way. Yeah. It's one of my all-time favorite shots of this year. It's just a gorgeously framed shot. So that
was the moment while I was watching the movie where I was like, this is really amazing. Because I like the film a lot. I'm actually borderline on the love it side, because I think I just found it deeply moving in terms of watching somebody overcome something like this. And now, regardless of the aspect of the story, it is really a story about overcoming bullying and overcoming people just not standing up for yourself, and kind of what that moment will be for you when you do stand up for yourself. And I think thematically, that's why I love this film. It wasn't just I was just involved with these characters. And this kid Mason, I don't really know where I know him from, But this is a star-making performance. Like, it is a phenomenal performance for a kid to carry a movie like this, an R-rated movie. And I saw it on a Sunday with a pretty packed crowd, and everybody was in it, man. Like, it is, and it's shot beautifully, scored incredibly. I just think Derrickson's such a damn great storyteller. It really, it's a great story. I think
we're putting a lot of attention on Elvis and Top Gun Maverick, both doing incredibly well, and again, emphasizing that 4 movies at the top of the box office chart had double-digit openings. I just want to quietly mention Dominion just cleaning up globally,
and making it look easy. Like, well, I feel like we're gonna wake up in like 6 weeks and go, "I'm sorry, it made how much?"
Yeah, I mean, it's already worldwide at $748 million, and so I feel that I'm not sure what territories are left for it to open in, but it feels like $1 billion is a lock.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. If you're Trevorrow and the movie gets the worst reviews in the history of the Jurassic franchise, I think it's like 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I know we don't qualify, but let's just use that for a second. It's 30% on Rotten Tomatoes is the worst critic rating in the franchise, but it makes a gazillion dollars. In your mind, is it a success?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Isn't that what Avatar is?
I mean, yeah, he'll argue
but
that
Avatar got nominated for Best Picture.
He's going to argue
whether you think
that
it should have or not.
He didn't make a movie for critics. He made a movie for fans of the franchise. That'll be his argument. Now, would he want critics to also appreciate it? Yes, of course. Of course he would.
And critics did like Avatar, obviously.
Some did. Yeah,
now,
some did.
Does he have to convince himself of that, or does he truly deep down believe that?
My point with 748 million worldwide is that's repeat business. You know, that's not, and word of mouth was,
and it's going to cross $1 billion
on this movie, and it didn't stop it in its track. Yeah, it is. I guess it is.
Yeah,
it must be.
Love these movies. I one of my producers came up to me the other day because I didn't like Dominion, and I said it on the air. He's like, I'm taking my son to see it, and I know, and his son loved it. I mean, his son's like 13 or 12, and like, you have to remember, like, that perspective of cinema, they don't have the recognition or the remembrance of seeing Jurassic Park for the first time, right? So like, I'm sure they've gone back and watched these movies, but in their head, like, these Jurassic World movies are it. So like, they don't really understand. Like,
I'm curious as to what a kid who grew up on the World movies, I'm curious to hear what they would think of Park, because like Park is small to them.
I will tell you, we literally just went back to the symphony this past weekend.
Yes.
And watched.
And it's so great.
Jurassic
How great
Park.
is that?
Well, it's terrific. This was our 3rd time seeing a movie with the Charlotte Symphony.
If you've never done it,
alongside of it.
I'm seeing Return of the Jedi on Friday.
We saw Back to the Future, and we saw A Nightmare Before Christmas, and then we just went to go see Jurassic Park. And this
I've seen Jaws and Raiders, and they're phenomenal.
Terrific uses of it. So Back to the Future became Brendan's all-time favorite movie after seeing it with the symphony. After seeing it with the symphony, because they added music, added so much to it.
Particularly that score, Alan Silvestri's score.
That score is terrific.
Did you say Nightmare on Elm Street?
No. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Okay, got it. I was getting really excited for a second.
That would have been,
Nightmare on Elm Street is a great score.
So, 2 things I'll point out about Park. Well, a couple of things I'll point out about Park.
And you and your whole family went.
All 4 of us went. Yeah. Yes. Of the 3, this was the first time that I kind of forgot the symphony was playing alongside of it because I was so engrossed in the movie. Hadn't seen Jurassic Park from start to finish. Hadn't actually physically sat down to watch Jurassic Park from start to finish. And just the way that movie is constructed is so it's so perfect. It's just perfect. Did
it surprise you? Because it surprised as many times as I've seen this movie. It's because whenever you watch the movie and there are stretches where they don't play, a lot of times they'll put down like their bows or they'll put down like their instruments.
Sure.
During the T-Rex breakout, it really made me realize, oh, that's right. There's no music in this like 10-minute sequence at all. Right. It really makes you realize the moments that do and do not use music.
Yes. Well, it was like the first time when you saw Heat for the first time, and they go into that shooting sequence at the bank, and there's no music. It's just like the sound of guns echoing. Like, to me, like that's a masterful score and filmmaking tool, because if you have a great score, it's the silence that makes that score even better when it comes back in, and it makes that moment more realistic.
Now, both of my boys grew up on the Jurassic World franchise. Like the Jurassic series to them is Jurassic World. It's Chris Pratt, it's Bryce Dallas Howard. They've seen the other films, but those are the ones that they attach themselves to. But both of them coming out of it were like, oh, that's much better than I remember it to be.
Right.
Because, and especially like once the kitchen scene started, like Brendan was sitting next to me and he leaned over and he goes, oh, the kitchen scene. And I was like, yeah. And then like they were just in, they're just in, it just pulls you in. So it was terrific. And, but there were moments, my one complaint, and then we'll wrap up this segment, that there were times when they ran the movie with subtitles because there were times that the music overpowered the dialogue. And that didn't happen with Back to the Future, and it didn't happen with Nightmare Before Christmas. So it was weird that happened that way. And I don't know what the case was.
Just to round out real fast the box office, just to give these numbers, because I want to make a point here, because at the start of the pandemic, and I think even Jordan Peele was talking about this recently, where the reason he made Nope the way he did is because he wanted to make a spectacle, because he wasn't sure where the theatrical business was going to be, during this period. And I know the theater business is the least of our worries when we're dealing with a pandemic, but it was a concern for people who love going to the movies and things like that. And to sit here on a Tuesday looking at the box office for this weekend, Elvis 31 million, Top Gun 29 million, Jurassic World 26 million, Black Phone 23 million, Lightyear 18 million. That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I'm just so happy that we were able. I mean, again, we're still in the pandemic. I'm just so happy that we're seeing this happen.
Remember when we were just basically reporting every week on like this movie was pushed back and that movie was pushed back and this movie was pushed back a year and this movie was pushed back a year and a half.
It shows you again and again and again that nothing matches the theatrical experience. And like part of the reason why films like Jurassic are doing so well is because think about the social aspect. This is something we talk about when we talk about like the Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve when they were writing about HBO Max and things like that. The social aspect of getting in a car with your friends and going to the movies and like hanging out, talking on the outside of the movie afterwards. These are things you can't do at home or recreate at home. And I know not everybody has accessibility to theaters, but I just love that we're seeing this happen. I mean, it's also a really big deal.
It no longer gives movies the pandemic excuse for failure anymore.
Right.
Because now we've seen older audiences come out from movies like Top Gun and Elvis. We've seen astronomical, fanboy numbers from movies like No Way Home. Like every sort of audience has been served. And if the movie is right, shown up for a particular film in some form or fashion. So you can no longer if a movie in this fall bombs, they can't say, oh, it's the pandemic anymore, because we've seen,
And in a minute, you're going to have a nice balance in the top 10 because you're going to have Minions, you're going to have Thor: Love and Thunder, you're going to have Nope, you're going to have Bullet Train. Yeah. Like there's a bunch of things coming that are going to draw crowds.
And people are going multiple times to Top Gun and multiple times to Jurassic.
I saw 3 times.
You want to get out and you want to go, and there are movies that are designed to be seen this way. And it just makes me really happy that we're back in this position.
Here. Gabe, are we taking an ad break or are we doing the tier list?
Go ahead and throw us to an ad, Sean.
Sounds good. See you guys on the other side.
Pay some bills.
And we are back, and we're diving right in to the Quentin Tarantino tier list. I will start us off before we get going to let people know about some of the new rules, the new ways that this is going to work. For one, if you're new here, we talked to Tarantino himself, and so we consider Kill Bill to be one movie. And so,
I'm sorry, Gabe, could you say that one more time?
We consider Kill Bill to be one movie. And if you've been here a long time, if you've been here a long time, you'll know that has been a point of contention on this show between some of the hosts. Sure. But we've moved on past that because the director himself said
we're better people now.
We're better people. So you might see.
To be fair, I'm not gonna. He did say, "I understand where you're coming from."
Yeah, that's it's being polite.
That's a nice way of saying you're wrong.
That's like the equivalent of like my mom saying "bless your heart."
Yeah. So
it just means you're stupid.
To finish my points, you'll see the Kill Bill Volume 1 artwork, but we're using it to represent Kill Bill as a whole. And if you've been listening to our tier lists you'll know that we rank them S through F and then haven't seen. But for directors, we're taking away S and we're replacing it with masterpiece. And we are challenging ourselves to debate and decide on a singular masterpiece, a more sort of closer to the definition, I guess you could say, of a masterpiece.
This will never work for Nolan, by the way.
The way this is going to work is we're going to stay away from masterpiece. We're going to rank everything A, B, C, D, and F. And then at the end, we will come back to the A tier and we will all talk about what we want to nominate for the masterpiece. We'll have a discussion and we'll have to somehow civilly agree on what his masterpiece is.
Good luck with that.
This is going to be a relatively short one for me.
I think it's going to be quick. Quick. So we'll see how fun this is.
I got a couple of curveballs to throw everyone's.
No, you don't.
Right.
I do. Just
All right.
conversations. Conversations sake.
Reservoir Dogs. Is there any reason this shouldn't be an A, gentlemen?
No. It's an A.
Nope.
It's an A, right? What an incredible debut, historic debut. Is this kind of credited? I think it's a number of films of sort of kicking off the like new era of independent filmmaking. I don't know. I can't remember if this is the first. Obviously, like the first independent was in the 70s. I can't think of the name of it. Easy Rider.
Like this was around the time that like
indie
that
film.
Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and Clerks.
And Clerks.
That era, they all came out together.
What's a Linklater's movie?
Linklater made
Scanners?
Slackers.
Yes. Slackers.
Yeah, all of those films, and Reservoir Dogs is absolutely one of them.
Yeah,
captured the voice of these filmmakers so completely that everything that came after them, they evolved and grew, but it was still, you saw the bones of who they were in those early movies. Like,
also, Reservoir Dogs was the first movie that I ever saw where I started to notice that songs became connected to movies out more than they did as songs themselves.
Yeah,
right.
Like Stephen Wright, who's hosting K. Billy's Super Sounds of the 70s.
Super Sounds of the 70s.
And then he puts on that Steelers Wheel track that Mr. White then does his dance to and cuts Marvin's ear off with. That is a song that will never not be Reservoir Dogs to me. I mean, and there's so many of those songs in terms of like Quentin's career.
Have you ever been at like a department store or a grocery store and like specifically like that song, heard that song come on, and you can almost look around to see, like you could see the faces of usually like dudes, but like a number of people. You can look around and just see the people connecting it to Reservoir Dogs. You can just sort of see like, or a lot of times, like, people whispering to someone like, oh, this is the Reservoir Dogs song. This is the Reservoir Dogs song.
To be fair, the 70s and 80s had plenty of songs.
I'm not saying it
that
doesn't,
were associated with songs.
The point I made was a personal point. I said, gotcha. As a kid, Reservoir Dogs was the first time I started to associate a specific song with a scene. But I remember I was also 11 years old when that movie came out. So to clarify, that comment was a personal comment, not a overarching comment.
Well, it's a wonderful movie. We'll keep it moving with what I assume is going to be another A, Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction. Any detractors?
That's a D.
No,
it's
but another
D.
Another instance of music. Al Green. I can't think of songs that are famous for, and this actually goes to Sean's point. There are songs in Pulp Fiction that are famous to other people for many other reasons decades prior, right? Those songs will always be Pulp Fiction songs to me, though, because I hadn't heard them before Pulp Fiction.
All right. Yeah, at least he, for the most part, tried to go out of his way and pick songs that weren't like wildly popular.
Jake, I'm going to have to mute you singing,
especially that soundtrack. Because we're gonna get sued. That soundtrack.
So it's just gonna be silent video of me doing this.
Yes, and then no one being able to understand whatever Sean just said.
Everyone owned that soundtrack when that movie came out.
Yeah, great soundtrack.
Everyone,
great soundtrack.
Enormous,
and kind of solidified. Well, I guess I don't know. You guys might remember better than me. I don't have memories from this time. We'll just say. But did this kind of solidify him as like a soundtrack director?
It did,
because the first was, his first film was his first film, but this one is just such a monumentous soundtrack.
I'll tell you why. So, and Gabe brings up a really interesting point because I think there are three types of filmmakers: soundtrack heavy filmmakers, score-driven filmmakers, and then there's filmmakers who combine both of those. Like, for example, like something like Thor Ragnarok or even Thor Love and Thunder, where you have heavy soundtrack, but also great score. I mean, you're able to live in both worlds. But going back to Pulp Fiction, the moment I realized how important soundtrack was going to be for him as a filmmaker, and I don't think I realized it until later on in my life that this was the moment, but I'll never forget my mom's best friend, Carol, coming to visit from New York. And
we know Carol.
Oh, you know Carol from my wedding. Yeah. And well, do you met her at the wedding?
I was only kidding. No, I was only kidding. Well, I don't know Carol at all.
Jake might know her.
Jake might know
Anyways,
Carol.
My mom's best friend, Carol, came to visit from New York. And at the time, Pulp Fiction was the biggest, most talked about film out there. And they rented it on VHS, and I wasn't allowed to watch it because I think I was 10 at the time. And then I went downstairs and I snuck behind the couch, and Dick Dale's opening guitar riff, that was the moment where I realized I don't know in that moment for sure that I clicked it, but that was the moment I remember going back to thinking, man, that is game changing. It just changed everything about how I thought music could be used in a movie. And remember we asked Quentin about why he froze her mouth in that moment, which I thought was so cool. I always wondered why he did that.
Yes. But yeah, if you're new here, go back, check our feeds wherever you get podcasts, and look for our 3 interviews with.
That one was answered in the 20-minute one, I want to believe.
It was.
First interview,
yeah. We talked about the opening scene and basically the characters, and then essentially what the line is said, which I can't probably say on our show. But
we'll just keep it moving with Jackie Brown, a departure from his first 2, an adaptation, right? It's based on a book, if I'm not mistaken.
Elmer Leonard, Rum Punch.
Thank you, yes. Who wants to?
Jackie Brown's a B for me.
B for Brown.
It's an A
Jackie
for
Brown's
me.
A B.
I forget that Kevin does love this one. Jake, where are you at?
I'm going to say B because it's the only time it feels like Tarantino is doing someone else's material.
That's why it's a B for me.
See, I disagree.
It's a good movie.
I disagree with that.
No,
it's a good
movie. It's a really good movie, but it feels like Tarantino doing Elmore Leonard.
That makes it a B, but Kevin, I do want to hear, because you like it as an A, I do want to hear your thoughts.
I think the Jackie Brown is one that has grown with me over time. So I went and saw Jackie Brown, I think it was Christmas Day with my father. And I remember sitting in there because I was such a Pulp Fiction fan, and it is such a gigantic change and shift in terms of like pacing and the way it's done. So I think coming off of Pulp Fiction, it was hard for people to not think of Pulp Fiction and want Pulp Fiction from that filmmaker. As I've gotten older and I sat down and watched Jackie Brown more and more, it's a masterwork. I think one of his greatest shots of all his entire career is in that film. It's when Sam Jackson, it's a oneer where he puts Beaumont, Chris Tucker's character, in the trunk, and he's listening to that track in the car, and he gets up and he gets in the car and drives around in the one shot, parks, shoots Beaumont, gets back in the car. And it's so effective in terms of soundtrack and performance, but also just that movie is all about kind of sitting around, right? It's kind of there is a hangout aspect to that film as well.
Yeah, it was his hangout movie before he did Hollywood. Right.
And like sitting there on the couch with De Niro and Samuel Jackson and Bridget Fonda, and then just like kind of like, that moment when like the phone's ringing and Bridget Fonda won't get up, Samuel Jackson is just like, I don't know. I just think back to that film a lot more than I did at a younger age. It's funny because if we'd done this tier list in 97 when I was a kid, I would be like, yeah, that was a B, it wasn't an A. But yeah, I have it at an A now.
I've tried. Every time we interview him, I tend to do like a run through of his work every time we speak to him. And every time I press play on Jackie Brown, I think, okay, this is the time where it's really going to click for me in the way that it clicks for Kevin, and it just never has.
And the storyline that improves for me over the years is Robert Forster and Pam Grier. Yeah. They're a terrific side plot.
Oh yeah,
or main plot essentially.
Yeah.
The opening shot, or one of the opening shots, I think it's the opening shot of the movie, where it's in the credits and we're just going alongside Pam Grier. I think it's at LAX. Pam Grier is so amazing in that film. Michael Keaton is incredible. Also, but man, Robert Forster is so damn great in that movie.
He is great, but it loses me on all of the Hangout stuff. It loses me on the Sam Jackson, Robert De Niro stuff, which is just too loose. It's too loose.
Didn't he say, like, in our interview that Jackie Brown is a movie that his characters would go see, which is why it still feels like kind of detached for me. It feels, it's his Lightyear in a way.
And also, I gotta say, it'd be very easy for us to go across the board, honestly, in his filmography and just be like A across the board.
Sure.
Well, I think we have to scrutinize a bit and put a few of them a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But and then last thing about Jackie Brown, real quick. Talking about soundtrack, there's a song in that movie called "Across 110th Street." That will forever, again, it's a song that meant something to other people years ago before they saw Jackie Brown. Like my mom and dad probably thought that song, heard that song differently, right? But for me, I didn't know that song until I saw Jackie Brown, and it's always solidified with that movie, and I love that song. See, Quentin basically has educated me on so much music that I never would have listened to or ever heard of, probably. Because I grew up like a heavy metal fan and a hip hop fan, but I didn't go back to the original classics and the earlier films and earlier music. And I'm just so thankful to him that I love Across 110th Street. And I think I'm just so happy I know that song. It's because of Jackie Brown. But I love that movie. And I think people should give it another chance. I was in the same camp as you guys for a little while. It took me a while. Same thing happened to me on No Country for Old Men. I didn't love the ending of No Country for Old Men until I got older. Jackie Brown just hits different now.
We will keep it moving with, as we prefaced this segment with, Kill Bill. Should we just refer to it as the whole bloody affair, Kev?
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. Or just Kill Bill.
Or just Kill
Now,
Bill.
here's where things are going to get complicated. Because if you guys truly want to consider Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2 as one movie,
We are.
Then to me, it's a B.
Okay.
Because I would argue then that the second half of that movie is not nearly as good as the first half.
Even though David Carradine has one of the greatest monologues in Tarantino history in that movie.
Sure. He has Tarantino has 8 greatest monologues in Tarantino history that are all very good.
And also,
not that disparages it, but
you're talking about the last 20 minutes of a 2.5 hour film.
But it's interesting because the first half of the film is very much influenced by his love of samurai films, and the back half of the film is very much influenced by his love of spaghetti westerns. And I prefer the spaghetti western influences more so than the samurai influences.
Interesting.
Well, and again, for people and this is a debate we've had on the show a million times, but for people who don't know this, he shot the whole thing as one movie, over 1 million feet of film. I remember him shooting for this. And we
finally discuss this in the New York interview, Volume 2, or did this all come out in the first interview?
The first interview. It was the first interview. And basically the thing you're referring to in our New York interview, which we can go ahead and plug because that's my favorite interview I've been a part of. We had a whole discussion with him about the NC-17 possibility of the House of Blue Leaves scene. And there's a really cool story that he tells about playing with the MPAA.
So good.
Yeah. And so
we gotta stop patting ourselves
Kill
on the back
Bill,
here.
I'm telling you Kill Bill is a movie that Quentin shot and intended as one film. And though it was split into 2 because of a studio thing. And he explained it in our interview. Just go back and find it. It makes sense financially.
And I understand that. But I'm saying that tonally, the 2 halves of this one movie, let's say, are so different to me.
I don't think you would have felt this way if you had seen it as one. Like The Deer Hunter, for example. There are 2 tones to that film. Full Metal Jacket, 2 tones to that movie, but they work together.
I don't know.
You could split Full Metal Jacket.
Volume 2 feels like a completely different movie to me.
Well, it's an A for me.
It's an A for me too.
Okay. That'll put us in the A.
Well, I mean, Sean, have you seen Deer Hunter and Full Metal? You've seen Full Metal Jacket, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're directed by Tarantino for people out there listening. I know they're Kubrick and I don't actually who did Deer Hunter.
Full Metal Jacket is 20 minutes of a 2-hour movie. Like, these are tough comparisons. It's not. We didn't get The Boot Camp is not an entire movie that was
more than
released
20 minutes
separately. I think it's about 20 minutes.
How long is the opening of Deer Hunter before they go into the war?
That
like an hour and a half, probably an hour or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
But if we were doing these separately, I would call volume 1 an A and volume 2 a B. But
Okay.
if you guys want to put them both together, then you can put them both at A.
All right. Death Proof.
Now I would
A unique
be
entry.
okay with going. I'd be okay with a B here.
B, yeah, I'm B for Death Proof.
I'm B for Death Proof.
But it's really good. But it's really good.
No,
It's
yeah.
very
Well, I mean,
good.
once the
Terrific.
chase starts, it's some of his best directing in terms of like his craft as a director. I just find like for a man who is known for writing like probably the greatest dialogue in movie history, I find the conversations and the dialogue amongst really a lot of the characters in the leading up to the chase to be like fairly mediocre work for him.
Sure.
I'm a really big fan of the Grindhouse double feature, and to me it was like one of the coolest experiences to see that as a 3.5 hour or so film with the 3 trailers in between from Rob Zombie and Edgar Wright and who am I missing here? Who was the third guy that jumped in for that one?
Eli Roth. Eli Roth did Thanksgiving.
Yeah, there you go. And then
Thanksgiving?
and then
or no, Thanksgiving.
Werewolves of the yeah. And then, so yeah, that's right. The movie opened with Machete, then it went to Planet Terror, then it went to the 3 trailers, then it went to Death Proof. Death Proof it's incredible. I mean, I actually like the dialogue and all the leading up to it and the bar stuff and just the driving around in the car but it's
his most basic. It's his most basic film.
Sure.
It's
but
still stylish. It's not aspiring to a whole heck of a lot. It's a genre exercise.
But man, that scene when he crashes that car and that leg flies out of the I mean that is one of the most I will never forget seeing that for the first time and just thinking about how terrified I would be to be sitting in that seat without a seatbelt going that fast, knowing what was coming and knowing nothing, you could do nothing about it. Like that is so freaking scary, man. Like oh, what a brutal sequence. And Kurt Russell's great in that movie.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, he
a
is
great
great.
Kurt Russell performance. But yeah. All right. I'm good with a B on that.
Cool. B it is.
This
Well,
is
the
where I
rest
feel
are
like things are about to get interesting.
So we have Inglorious Bastards.
A.
It's absolutely an A. Yeah.
You this is an automatic.
Sean just shrugs.
Wait a second. Sean.
Absolute A.
Yeah.
It's a B for me, but I'm
Okay.
outvoted.
The opening scene alone is a masterpiece.
But you enjoy singling out specific scenes from
I'll go through
Tarantino
the whole
films.
movie you want me to.
No, but I'm saying that the movie itself, the whole movie itself, is not great. There are certain scenes in it that are very good. They're very
movie.
There are certain scenes in it that are very good.
Respectfully.
There are certain scenes in it that are very good, but the whole movie itself is not great.
I disagree.
It's pretty unshapely.
Dude.
It's
I was just about to say you're pretty unshaped.
it's true. That is also true.
He made eating cream.
Don't forget
intense.
the cream.
I mean, like that.
No,
that movie.
There's a tremendous opening scene of a 2 hour and 25-minute movie.
I think that script is tight.
Outstanding opening scene.
Oh, I think the entirety of the script is just tremendous.
The whole script.
Here's the thing. I mean, there are chunks of the middle of that movie that I can't even tell you what happens in it. It does not stick
How many times
with me.
have you seen it?
I've tried 3 or 4 times. I can't get through it.
What?
I can't get through it. I find it to be incredibly boring.
It doesn't make it a B for me, but the Mike Myers inclusion is one of the worst choices. One of the worst choices he's made.
That's just as bad. That one, and then him playing the Australian guy in Django was terrible. Those are the 2 worst.
I think there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things in Inglourious Bastards that Quentin thinks are really funny that don't connect with me.
Gorlami. I like that. That's funny.
Like maybe it's like Kevin and Taika. Yeah, like Pitt's exaggerated accent.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, I love Pitt,
it wears on me after a minute. It's just nope.
Gabe is 100% right about Mike Myers, by the way. I'm glad you brought that up because that's
like I said, it doesn't make it a B for me though. It doesn't make it.
Agreed, but it takes me out of the movie.
Let's go on to Django because I do want to reserve some time for the masterpiece discussion. Django Unchained.
I think Django's an A.
Django's an
Django's an A.
Django's an A.
I think Django's
fantastic.
an A. And Django's an A mostly for me because of DiCaprio.
Oh.
And I
also-
love Waltz in it, and I love Jamie Foxx in it. I think Sam Jackson is so despicable.
Yeah.
And maybe that's his part, but it's uncomfortable for me to watch.
I love Waltz in that movie, but the fact that Waltz won the Oscar and DiCaprio and Sam Jackson didn't even get nominated is kind of astounding to me.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Also, Sam Jackson's performance in that movie, it's one of the best performances of his career.
Oh, it's
100%.
horrifying.
He found a route into that character that the uncomfortable feeling you're feeling is meant to be. Like,
of course.
and
Yes, of course.
When I watch Django, though, it's definitely an A. Also, I think it's out of all the movies he's made, I think it's is it his only love story as a director? I think
probably.
so.
Probably.
Yeah,
Well, no, Jackie Brown is. I think Jackie Brown is.
Yeah. That's a good call.
But Django is such a great love story. I love that.
And
Django,
Kill Bill's a breakup story.
But here's the difference. With DiCaprio, I know he's sinister because he's sinister in Django, but I can still enjoy watching him. Like there's a difference between like I'm enjoying how much of a villain you are versus Sam Jackson's character, who's just evil. He's just evil.
There's that scene where Sam Jackson tells the story. Was it? I'm trying to remember this, if I have this right, where he would shave the neck of DiCaprio's father's character, right? And I just remember that scene sticking with me because that to me is kind of who the character is, this loyalty the character has in that sense. And it's really terrifying. You're 100% right, because you think about that moment, why wouldn't he just do that to DiCaprio's dad and just roll, get out of there? And it is a very interesting character study, and I think that's why Sam Jackson wanted to play it, because it's so layered and so unbelievably horrifying at times, what the character ends up having to do.
We're gonna keep it going with the Hateful Eight. Hateful Eight. Anyone doesn't want to put this at an A?
No, I think Hateful Eight's an A.
Yeah, I love Hateful Eight. Hateful Eight is surprisingly rewatchable.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
I've actually found myself.
I've never done
it every winter.
I still have not seen that extended thing that he did with Netflix.
I watched that where they split it into episodes. I still prefer it as a movie.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. It's a different experience. Honestly, I'm glad we brought this up.
But does it add anything? Nothing's added to it, right? It's just cut.
Harder. No, it feels. No. Oh yeah. I mean, it's stuff he shot.
Yeah.
But
yeah. But no, I'm saying they don't add any more footage or anything.
They add stuff to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to see it.
It's 4 hours long.
It's like watching.
This is why
episodic.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I love about the episodic element of it plays completely differently. Because basically, as you reach an end of an episode, they do a cheesy
intro song every time, and they all look at the camera.
No, it just
it's like Peacemaker. They're all dancing in the snow.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's episodic. So when you go on the Netflix, you play 5 episodes of Stranger Things.
Right.
Yeah, it's really good. Also, real quick on Django, DiCaprio's monologue with the skull.
Sure.
And then Sam Jackson's monologue in Hateful Eight about Bruce Dern.
Well, I think I also figured out one thing quick that I want to add, that my problem is with Bastards. Similar to Wes Anderson, I think Wes Anderson finds certain actors who are really good at delivering his dialogue. Mm-hmm. And I think Quentin Tarantino finds actors who are really good at delivering his dialogue. Tim Roth,
Channing
Tatum, Sam Jackson, obviously. Kurt Russell ends up becoming one of these guys, especially in Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
I don't think people in Inglourious Bastards are really good with Tarantino's dialogue.
I don't disagree.
I don't think Pitt is. I don't think Eli Roth is. I don't think Michael Fassbender is. I think only Christoph Waltz.
The Fassbender scene in the restaurant proves that all wrong.
Does
I'm
nothing
sorry.
to me.
Does
nothing for
my
me.
God, that scene is one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
You're talking about Magneto when he's threatening to kill those guys. That's a much better scene.
All right. Once Upon a Time in
I
Hollywood.
do love
much
that
better
scene.
It's an A. Yeah, Hollywood's an A. Yeah.
All right.
Hollywood is his
I
masterpiece.
want to
Put up a
parlay
masterpiece.
that
It is.
right into masterpiece nominations. We've done 3 interviews with Tarantino about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so go back. You will hear us gush about that film over and over again. I have a random order here. I'm just going to go down. Jake, what's the one film you want to nominate as masterpiece?
Pulp Fiction.
Sean? Oh,
Hollywood.
it's between
It's
Kev?
between those two.
Yeah, it's between those two. I think so. Kev?
I think Hollywood's his best movie, but I think Pulp Fiction's his masterpiece.
I want to say Pulp Fiction as well. I want to say Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction. We don't. I don't know. Maybe this is not how you should grade a masterpiece, but if what he does in Pulp Fiction doesn't redefine the way people watch movies or think about storytelling in cinema at the time that it did, and influences the audience the way that it did, it doesn't give us all the other stories that he told us. You know what I mean? Like,
and just looking at, if you're watching on YouTube, like looking at this tier graphic, that image, just that poster, to me screams Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
That image more than anything, like, it's just, that image is so Quentin Tarantino.
Right. And this becomes a discussion of what a masterpiece really is, because in terms of, like, I could sit here and tell you that I think Hollywood's the best movie he's ever made. It was the movie he was born to make. But Pulp Fiction, it's hard not to justify that as the masterpiece, because while I do think Hollywood's a better movie overall, Pulp Fiction did things, and it's hard because I'm kind of against this train of thought. So I'm
actually genuinely surprised to hear you say this, to be honest with you.
Here's the point I'm trying to make. Like, going back to like I don't love Citizen Kane, for example. I think Citizen Kane is a technical masterpiece. I don't particularly care for it from a story perspective. But I also
Sean,
understand.
What did Orson Welles think of your review?
I also fully understand what Citizen Kane did for cinema in terms of deep focus and shots and editing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you can't knock Citizen Kane from because of what it did. I don't love that film, but I love what it did. Pulp Fiction is Tarantino's masterpiece. It's the movie that changed everything. It moved cinema forward. It just changed the way we watched films. It was unique, special. It drew soundtrack into a special place that maybe we hadn't seen in a long time. The nonlinear structure of the movie, the performances, the revival of John Travolta, just two bad guys hanging out talking about hamburgers. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a very, very unique film that you cannot not call his masterpiece.
It changed everything.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
It literally changed everything.
But I sound like a hypocrite in a weird way, because I do believe that Hollywood's his best movie, but I can't give it his masterpiece. I can't.
I don't disagree with you, because I think Hollywood is him at his most polished.
Agreed.
And which is just, I mean, that's what making a movie every time. Well, he's getting better and better at it. But Hollywood is such a departure from him. It's still him. It's still a Tarantino movie. It's not that you feel like you're watching, kind of like we talk about Jackie Brown, where it kind of feels like he's doing someone else's thing. At the point that Jake made, it's not that it's that. It's still very much Tarantino, but it feels like he's letting us in on a different side that we just have never seen him do, and that's why it's so hard to put them against each other.
He also said in one of our interviews, I think it was the New York one, that on Pulp Fiction, he still very much felt like he was figuring out how to make a movie.
Absolutely.
You know, which is crazy because it turned out the way that it did. And sometimes there's beauty to that uncertainty. You know, sometimes real magic comes out of that.
I also think Pulp Fiction is, to me, Hollywood's his warmest movie. And I guess emotionally for me,
I would say that,
it's kind of like how I look at Nolan in terms of like why I love Interstellar so much, is because Interstellar was the first movie of his that I genuinely found myself emotionally invested in a way that it grabbed me. And I think Pulp Fiction, there's so much going on in Pulp Fiction that you're kind of like, in an ADD perspective, like jumping back and forth between these characters, and you stay with them for a certain period of time, but you're invested in them, but you're kind of just playing along with what they're doing. And it's a great way to tell a story. But with Hollywood, I found myself really, really emotionally attached to Sharon Tate, to, Rick Dalton, to Cliff Booth. I loved these people. I loved spending time with them. Sure. Just Sharon Tate walking into a bookstore to get a book for Polanski. Like, just that whole like that scene, on paper, it doesn't really mean anything, but like the way Quentin designs that shot, she walks by the theater, the songs that are playing, her picking up that hitchhiker along the way. These aren't like masterfully cinematic moments. They're just they're just masterfully done. Yeah. Like it's honestly, it's so hard because and we had this discussion before, like Hollywood grew on me. But you know, it is a weird thing because masterpiece, I think technically means their best work. This is a hard one.
That's not quite the definition. That's why I say it's a little loose definition of this. People have sort of adopted that, like you can only have one. It just sort of means that it's a highly skilled execution of a craft kind of thing.
It's Pulp Fiction.
It is a masterpiece. It's his masterfully done piece of that art. But that's how we are defining it. This is our list. Congratulations.
Was that the most like us singing Kumbaya tier list that we've ever done?
Sure.
Look at us. Yeah. Look at us.
I will
think so.
We're friends again.
For the audio listeners,
wait till we do Nolan.
We'll see if we ever get there.
To quote Kevin McCarthy, we're not ready.
We aren't.
I am scared. I'm scared.
You should be.
For the audio listeners at home, I will drop a link in the description if you want to take a look at the image of the final list, or head over to YouTube and you can watch that whole thing. But right now, we are going to take another ad break. And on the other side,
time to pay some bills because we got bills to pay.
We'll wrap this episode up.
And we are back. Okay, so we're going to skip over Obi-Wan talk because we are running a little bit long and we want to make sure we have time for the summer blockbuster blend conversation, which we're going to get to. Before we jump into that, we want to mention that this week in movies, a couple of things come into theaters and also to streaming. Joey King has a movie called The Princess, which looks like it's a period piece with a ton of John Wick style action. Should be a lot of fun if you guys have Hulu. Stranger Things season 4 part 2 is going to be dropping on Netflix on Friday, July 1st. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's only 2 episodes. Is that right?
But the second one, episode 9, is 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and the first one I think is like 90 minutes. Isn't
hour
it?
40. Yeah.
So it's like 2 movies.
And while we're here, I will plug if you missed our bonus episode that dropped this week with Robert Englund, talking about Stranger Things.
We put that out already?
Well, not already. It's coming out tomorrow, but the people who are listening to this, it will be out
Tuesday. It'll drop on Wednesday.
Are we using video on that?
Yes, sir.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
For people listening to this, you got to check out this episode. We were sitting in Robert Englund's, I guess, media room. It was really cool. Yeah.
It was weird because he made us call him the King of England. And I thought that was odd.
Okay, all right.
Nothing?
Keep it moving.
No?
Keep it
I like
moving.
that. You know I do.
All right. There's a wide release called Mr. Malcolm's List. And then Minions: The Rise of Gru is also opening wide. Go check out the boys. Have interviews with Steve Carell. So with the blend game this week, because we have a contest that we are doing. Gabe, you're going to talk more about
it's not a contest. It's not a contest.
Oh, gotcha.
Legally, it is not a contest. I have to expressly say that.
Sean.
We are doing a giveaway. It is not a contest. There's no way for you to compete with each other to win.
Correct.
Brought to you by the law offices.
The lawyers just descended upon.
And so for this reason, we are choosing our favorite summer blockbuster films and potentially some memories to go with that. And for that, I want Jake Hamilton to go first. Jakey, what is your favorite summer blockbuster?
I'm going with Jaws, a movie that I've spoken about extensively at length.
Nice.
It's the movie that I also most associate with summer. Like I watch it. Actually, what's the date today? Did it say the 28th? So today I actually should watch it because today is the day that young Chrissy gets eaten. Tomorrow the Kepner boy gets eaten.
Memorialize young Chrissy.
Yes, and then tomorrow the Kepner boy gets eaten, and then as we're approaching the 4th of July. No joke. These are the dates. And you know I grew up. You know it was probably the first movie I fell in love with as a kid. You know grew up in a small Texas town. Really didn't have much going on, and used to just like scrap together quarters to go down to the video store and rent Jaws ad nauseum. The first movie that made me realize, kind of like Kevin was talking, things about movies that not that I just liked a movie, but I liked how this was done. I liked how that was done. And it's just, it's the first one. It's the one, it's the one that created the genre. It's the one that created the season and the marketplace for it. It literally affected how people live their lives. People were afraid to go into the water, still afraid to go into the water. And it literally, this isn't a joke. It affected industries. Like people went bankrupt. Beachfront businesses went bankrupt in the summer of 75. Because people just didn't go to the beach. And it's terrible to think of, but that's also awe-inspiring when you think about the power of cinema in that way.
Steve Carell told me that he still can't swim in the ocean because of Jaws.
Wow.
I think a lot of people feel that way. And I could be completely wrong about this, but I feel like there's also a statistic of like shark killings, not sharks killing people, but people killing sharks.
Yeah.
Like there was a crazy increase just because of like
Peter
the paranoia
Benchley.
around it.
Yeah, Peter Benchley, who is now an advocate, a serious advocate of shark preservation, has come out extensively. I don't know if he's ever straight up used the word regret, but has shown hesitation about his contribution to that. And Peter Benchley is in the movie Jaws. If you didn't know, he's the reporter that reports on all the attacks that are happening.
What date did he die in the movie?
He survives.
Okay.
But he's doing the report right before that dude gets his leg eaten off. And you remember when the leg floats to the bottom of the water?
That's pretty awesome.
I would love if that was Jake's weird thing. Like any movie, not Jaws, any movie. He's like, oh, when that character dies,
who dies
you
on
see a
what
clock.
day?
It was like March 13th. Yeah, it was March 13th.
Oh, what? That's my favorite line delivery for anybody. A tiger shark.
That's one bad hat, Harry.
Oh, what?
Oh, where?
All right. So for my pick, I'm going with the Christmas movie, which was released on July 20th, 1988. When John McClane went to the top of the Nakatomi Plaza and decided he was going to take down Hans Gruber and a group of terrorists. Die Hard is...
I didn't realize that was released in the summer.
It was released in the summer, which is why most people are confused with it being a Christmas movie. And it was the movie that changed my life. This is my T2 for Kevin. This is the movie that I saw that made me realize that the movies are really, really special, and I would like to do something with them for the rest of my life. It was the first R-rated movie that I got to go see. My mom bought me a ticket, let me go see it by myself while she and my aunt went shopping around the Sunrise Mall. Oh, someone on the YouTubes in the comments down below.
Someone on the what?
Said on the YouTubes said in the comment down below that I had mentioned the Sunrise Mall and how I used to go see things at Sunrise Mall. And they were like, oh my God, I'm from Seaford, which is a town near me in Long Island. And they were like, I'm sure we were there on the same time.
That's wild. Isn't that crazy to think? I love stuff like that.
My mom and dad probably know that mall because they grew up. They're from Long Island too.
I wouldn't be surprised. Sunrise Mall is huge in Massapequa, Long Island. So I saw Die Hard there, and yeah, it is. First off, it's the epitome of what I like in summer movies. It's wall to wall action. It's a charismatic hero. It's as stylish get. Smart in a way that summer blockbusters eventually became sort of brainless. I've been doing a lot of focusing on the everyday blue collar qualities of John McClane and how different he was from the Stallones and Schwarzeneggers of the time, and then the template that he set moving forward for people like Eddie Murphy to transition over, for Billy Crystal to be in a movie like Running Scared, and for Hollywood to think of action heroes in a different way. And so, yeah, until the MCU rolled around, Die Hard was my favorite movie of all time. And so for summer blockbusters, I'm going to give it the love that it deserves. Kev, where are you?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's interesting because I feel like these are picks that we all have said before.
Sure.
I jumped between Terminator 2 and Dark Knight just because they were both quintessential summer films for me in my lifetime. But granted, I was not able to see T2 in theaters when I was 8. I watched it on a couch with my parents in between them on a VHS. But then I eventually did go back and see it in 3D years later, which I was thankful to be able to see it in theaters. But Terminator 2, I mean, that's the greatest movie I've ever seen.
There's literally an arm over your shoulder right now. Like it is. I mean, it's
it honestly, it changed my entire life. And I've said it before, but it is. And I remember that summer that it came out. I remember begging my parents to see it. I remember promising them I would get all A's on my report card because I was a talkative kid in school. So I would always get my teachers giving me comments, too talkative, talks too much in class or whatever. And I remember them coming back from the movie after Tiffany, our babysitter, watched my brother and I that night. And I remember I could see them leaving and coming back because I remember the trailers on TV were I mean, you have to remember. So when I was a kid, I've said this before, I was into magic, similar to Austin Butler. Actually, Austin Butler was a huge
have you said this
fan
before?
of magic. Yeah.
I was just thinking, I don't feel like you've ever said that before, ever.
Oh, I've said this before. It's on the show. But I was growing up,
you definitely have not emphasized it like that. I didn't know you were like into magic.
The fact that both Gabe and I just went like, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I was obsessed with magic. So what I later realized in my life is the reason
he's an onion, folks.
The reason why I liked magic so much was because it was the trick. It was an illusion. Yeah. It was somebody tricking me before my eyes. Mm-hmm. And I think when I finally saw Terminator 2, So long story short of it, I was already obsessed with magic. And then I was watching these trailers on TV, and my parents were obviously, they would go to the movies once a week. That's how my parents loved going to the movies. And Terminator 2 was coming out. It was 91 or whatever it was. I was 7, 8 years old, however old I was. And I remember begging them to go with them. And they said, no, it's rated R. You can't go. And they hired this babysitter, Tiffany. She came over, watched us. And I remember them leaving. And I remember them coming back. And I remember waiting for them to come back and to hear the review. I was like, how was it? Because I wasn't on social media. I didn't have people's thoughts on the movie. I didn't know what was going on. And they walked in and they were like, and they were blown away by it. And I remember saying to them, I was like, all right, guys, if I get all A's.
Hear me out.
Back then it was S's, N's, and U's. Satisfactory, needs improvement, unsatisfactory. And I was getting like some S's,
That's how
some
we should do our
N's.
tier list.
Right.
Needs improvement.
Needs improvement.
A New Hope needs improvement.
I visually remember asking my parents, if I get all S's on my next report card, will you let me rent this when it comes out on VHS? And they said, if you do that, we will watch it with you. Because there was no sex and nudity in that movie. It was just violence and language, right?
Oh, can I briefly just say one quick thing? I've gotten 3 text messages from different friends who have asked me, can I bring my teenager to Top Gun Maverick? Like, is it okay for them to bring them to Top Gun Maverick? And I'm like, of course you can bring them to Top Gun Maverick. And then they always reply back and they say, there's no sex stuff in it. Like, that is the only thing people are concerned about. Like,
and the sex stuff that's in it is like Hallmark movie.
Oh, it's as tame as tame can be.
Crossfades over fully clothed faces.
I have a whole other story about that, because I remember when I watched True Lies for the first time, my parents wouldn't let me watch her dance scene. And I remember I brought this up to Jamie Lee Curtis years later. I was like, you're a mom. Like, what are your thoughts on my parents not letting me watch that dance scene, but I could watch all the violence in the film? And she gave me a really cool answer. But anyways, back to T2.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I remember that.
Yeah.
But back to T2 real quick. In terms of, I got all S's, and I remember sitting on the stairs when I got the report card. I brought it home, and I was the happiest I've ever been in my life. And then that moment forward, I watched T2. Then I realized why I loved magic so much.
Did you get it on VHS when it came out?
It was VHS. No, I wasn't able to buy it. They let me rent it over and over and over again. So anyways, Terminator 2 that summer changed my life. And that was the moment that I realized it wasn't until years later that I realized my obsession with magic really kind of was because James Cameron became the magician, right?
Sure.
He was the magician that was delivering a magic trick of a T-1000 coming up from the ground and turning into another person.
Yeah. We don't have time for it, but if you don't know the story of the deleted T2 scene, which features a mirror that's not a mirror, to me, that is a quintessential example of movie magic. If you don't, we don't have enough time to get into it. Look it up. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that movie changed everything. So that's the ultimate. And then in my later years, Dark Knight became that movie for me. So it was like T2 was the game changer, and then Dark Knight was the next level. Like for me,
and James Cameron pulled the greatest trick of all time by convincing people that Avatar was a good movie and that it should make a lot of money.
4 more of them coming.
Wait, should we, as we trash Avatar, should we start saying Avatar at the end of the episode? Are we going to try to get Cameron this year?
I would love to.
I got another one. I'm gonna test drive at the end of this episode. Just wait and see. Audience picks. Gabe, walk us through the audience picks for
Yes, instead of pulling audience picks, we are doing a giveaway, and we're recording this on Tuesday. And I didn't want to cut anyone off. Some people, we have very loyal listeners that trickle in their viewing, throughout the week. So I wanted to give everyone a full week to participate if they haven't heard last week's episode yet, where we announced the giveaway that we are doing. So feel free to tweet at us, email us, realblend@cinemablend.com, or even in this video, drop a comment using the hashtag SummerBlockbusterBlend. Let us know what your favorite summer blockbuster movie is and why. And at 1 p.m. Eastern on Friday, when this episode drops, so if you're an early riser and you're hearing this, you still have time, I will pick our 5 winners of our giveaway.
You're part of the notification
and
crew.
What you are going to get, thank you to the wonderful, wonderful, kind folks at Movies Anywhere who have given us 5 codes for a movie triple pack, summer blockbuster themed movie triple pack, which includes Jaws, great pick, which includes Mad Max Fury Road Black and Chrome Edition, and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And again, thank you to Movies Anywhere. They reached out to us, want to do something cool because they love you guys and they love that they love this community. So
we love us too, by the way.
No one loves us more than us.
Sean, we don't have a giveaway for next week, but what is our blend game?
Oh, it's a good one. For next week, you can reach out on Twitter using hashtag Christian Bale Blend in honor of Gore the God Killer.
Wow.
We're going to talk about Christian Bale. So let us know.
He's really, really, really great in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite performances of his in a long time.
It might make the pick next week. Who knows?
He's great in it, man. It's not his best. It's not American Psycho, but it's great.
Let us know your pick via email at realblend@cinemablend.com, or you can use the hashtag Christian Bale Blend on social media, where we will be able to pick up your choices. In the meantime, while you're at it, drop us a review on Apple Podcasts, or send us a review that we can read on the show at realblend@cinemablend.com. As mentioned, our next premium episode is a bit of a landmark. We're going to be recording our 100th premium episode, and so we decided to do something pretty special for it. All of us are going to pick our favorite moments from the show, from all 4 years, all 220 episodes of the show. We're each going to just maybe down to like one or two of our favorite moments from the show.
We'll let it flow.
We will let it flow, as we quite often do in the premium episodes. So in the meantime, follow us online at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovach, and the show is at Real Blend. We'll be back with a brand new episode next week. And so until then, friends,
hockey pads.
The Fablemans.
Yes.
Aim big, kids. Aim big.